Hi, I'd like to share with you a book called Larger Than Life Lara by Dandi, Daley, Mackall. Chapter 1, Character. This isn't about me. This story, I mean. So already you got a reason to hang it up. At least that's what Mrs. Smith, our English teacher, says. She teaches 4th grade in Paris, Missouri. But I think she'd about 100 million times rather be in Paris, France. Anyways, she says you got to start with a character when you start your story, and since I'm the first character you hear from in my story, that should mean it's about me, Lainey Grafton, age 10, or nearly so, but small for her age, tough as a horseshoe, thanks to 3 big brothers, 1 bathroom. But it's not about me, because once you get a character for a story, Mrs. Smith says you give that character a problem, the whole rest of the story is about that problem getting bigger and bigger, and the character getting to be a better and better person. And the character solves their problem, and that's it, the end. Only it's not me what's got the problem. And I'm not a better person than I was 3 months ago when all this stuff happened. Just ask my dad or any of my 3 stupid brothers if you don't believe me. So like I said, this story's not about me. And Mrs. Smith, if you're out there reading it, well, I'm just sorry about that, but that's the way it is. Sometimes stories don't work out like they're supposed to. Chapter 2, The Beginning. First thing that happened was everybody in the whole 4th grade class, and that includes Mrs. Smith, stopped talking. She was right in the middle of telling us about William Shakespeare, who invented plays in England. Plus, she was telling us about a play our whole school was going to put on, and how some of us could be in it, and others of us would be really important, but on stage and not on stage, and that shouldn't make us feel bad. And we're all of us looking at Mrs. Smith, because she gets real mad at us when we don't. And I was watching the way her eyes change size when she finishes each sentence. They get bigger, like periods stretching into exclamation points. Anyways, that's the first thing. I heard quiet. Second thing was the air changed. Now this is where Mrs. Smith, Amanda Catrone, and Tommy Otto would argue with me, but this is my story. And I say the air in our classroom changed. It was hot, lemon drop sweating hot. So even as Maddie Simpson looked like she had tiptoed through a water sprinkler. And I'm not saying the air turned to ice or nothing, but I stopped sweating. So there you have it. There must have been footsteps too, because nobody, especially a kid who looked as big as this one, big as a sofa, could just sneak into a room without him. But I didn't hear any footsteps. And my daddy says I could hear a cat whisper. When he's been drinking, he says the cats in China can hear me, which is his way of saying shut up. And he has other ways of saying shut up, but you can't write him into a story. Now, Mrs. Smith would call this part a digression. So I'm thinking I can get away with it because I got it inside all these parentheses. Before I saw who'd come into our room, though, and change the air, I saw Joey Gilbert see her. And Joey looked like he had just spotted a ghost. Or maybe the principal had just kicked him out of school for a week for punching a littler kid, and his mom showed up. Then I saw Marissa see her. Marissa's so shy you almost never even see her face. But this minute, her face is full view on. And it's nearly all eyes and mouth dropped open. Then I saw her. And I've seen her so much since that first time, it's honest to Pete hard to say what I thought she looked like. And this is something I never thought about as a writer of real things that you haven't made up. It's not easy to write the truth, even if that's all you set out to do. I guess I remember thinking, this is the biggest girl I've ever seen. Right away, I wonder if she was stuck in the doorway, because she's still standing there, filling up the whole space, and there's no light from behind her. And I figured she was about the most mountain-like human being I had ever seen, or maybe hill-like, with ridges and rolling fields. And I probably thought that because she was wearing a green dress. And I'm sure about that green dress, because it's what she always wore to school. Whoa! Eric Rudabaugh was the first one to start up talking, of course. And Wayne wasn't far behind. Man, is the circus in town? Wayne whispered, only his whisper is about 100 times louder than a normal person's regular voice. I risked looking at the stranger's face to see how she took it, but her round cheeks didn't even twitch, and those pale blue eyes stayed twinkling like she was smiling even though her mouth wasn't. So I figured she hadn't heard Eric and Wayne, because when they call me freak girl or toughie, and I guarantee they don't mean it in a good way, or hillbilly, There's no reason I can pretend that I didn't hear. Can I help you? Mrs. Smith said, clearing her throat, like being hoarse was the reason she didn't say something before Eric and Wayne got to. I'm Lara. The girl's mouth joined her eyes in that smile, and she glanced around the room like she was handing each one of us a little piece of her smile. I looked down at my fingernails when I could tell that she was getting to my row. Dirt was packed on her nails that weren't bent down on the finger, so I tried picking the dirt out. I don't go around dirty. Really, I don't. But nails and ears, those are the parts you just kind of forget about. At least I do. There's this picture of my mama at the bottom drawer in my daddy's dresser. It's underneath magazines that he doesn't want my brothers to look at. It doesn't take one look at that picture to know my mama never, ever forgot to clean under her fingernails. Anyway, I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith said. Lara? Lara, the girl said, not like she was mad. Lara. I see. But you see, the teacher did not see. Were you looking for someone? Lara's smile got big enough to show us her tiny white teeth. One of the front teeth was missing, and that made her look stranger than fiction. She stayed there, standing in the exact center of the room. Anyway, sometimes Mrs. Smith makes us do these exercises describing characters when we write stories in class. Characterization, she calls it. It looks like this. Blank is the kind of person who. Blank is the kind of person who. Then we fill in the blanks for all the characters. Well, my mind was filling in the blanks like this. Lara is the kind of person who changes the air in a classroom. Laura is the kind of person who would be the only one left in Kansas if a tornado blew everybody else to Oz. Mrs. Smith wouldn't like this one, though, because I think it's too long. Lara is the kind of person nobody ever sees, even though she's the biggest thing in the room. Lara is the kind of person who makes you feel almost normal. Lara is the kind of person you never forget. Thanks for listening. Larger Than Life Laura by Dandi, Daley, Mackall.